Hey guys, we're back. Sean Paul here. This is Royce Cousins, and we're talking about anger today.
So, I don't want you to get the impression that just because we're on a YouTube channel and we're talking about spiritual things that we got it all figured out. So I get to tell you a story about myself as recently as, today's today, Tuesday, so it'd be 2 days ago. So, I have this dog that's incredibly annoying in terms of when I leave, he has a tendency to tear things up. His goal is to get into something that's nice and warm. And so I have this old garage, built when the house was, so about 1930s. And he's broken into multiple doors in the house. He's broken the garage doors. He's literally scratched and clawed a hole in the side of one of the garage doors. And so we're constantly trying to, keep him in the appropriate places. And recently he found out when we spent all that money on, insulating under the house and doing all this stuff, that he could break in under the house until I go and, get everything all fixed there. So I put bricks in front of it, did all this stuff. I even opened up my garage door so that we could go on a trip thinking, all right, I would rather my garage door be open and, exposed to the public and everything, and him not break under the house and tear up the insulation and everything else that he's doing and get animals and everything else under there. And when I got home, he had, broken into that. And it seems like a simple thing. Why would something so small get me so riled up? But I was so angry, and the anger has been building up with this animal so much that, quite frankly, I have images of murdering this animal. He makes me so mad. I mean, he's not some sweet little innocent puppy. He's an 80-pound, big, scary-looking animal, and I just want him to not be alive. It just really frustrates me. And so I come in the house, and and he had gotten in the house, and I'm trying to stay as calm as I can, but I'm just like, I need to walk away from this dog, and I'm so mad. I am slamming doors, and my family's just giving me all kinds of space, and I slammed the door, and because I couldn't get him to go outside, so I had to go outside, and I slammed the door behind me, and I am screaming profanities. Thank goodness I've got 10 acres, so there's only 2 people that can hear me, but it doesn't matter. The fact is here's this guy who, does youth ministry, men's ministry, all of this stuff, and I lost it. We're talking about anger. I mean, this was more like rage. So, it wasn't my finest moment by a lot. And what's even funnier is I look back on my life, and you remember my dad, 6'4", very intense, and while he never hit me or did any of that kind of stuff, he was angry quite a bit, So I remember so many times saying, "I'll never do that. I don't want to be like him." And yet, what's the one thing that that I've fought my whole life? It's all the things that I don't want to do, that we saw our dads do. Anyhow.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, it's interesting. As we were preparing to do this video, I was thinking about there are a lot of issues where it's really maybe not easy, but it's simple to say, here's the issue and here's how you fix it.
Yeah, here are the 6 steps to
And I mean, most people would not know me as a very angry person, but anger is a constant issue in my life too. I'm sure it is for a lot of you guys. I know as guys, we tend to translate a lot of other feelings and emotions into anger, whether it's fear or frustration or, even just plain, I don't know what to do. It's easy for us to go, I'm just angry. And I was considering the things talked about in Man in the Mirror, and even the questions that he asks, and I thought if I were to be counseling somebody like yourself on how to improve, man, there's just no easy 3 steps and your anger's taken care of.
Well, here's a cool thing. I've actually, as bad as that story sounds, but I mean, it's not the worst thing anybody's ever heard, but it's also not the worst thing I've ever done either. But
sure,
that's fairly rare now, compared to who I was before. So just, me spending time with God, renewing my mind, taking every thought into captivity, having conversations with God, and making mistakes, and then going back and, apologizing to my family, and then having a conversation with God and going, what was going on?
Mm-hmm.
And so I start to see patterns in my life that are helping me, and I'm even coaching my son, who's, he's just 10, but just what is it that actually, gets me super riled up often is a lack of control.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm out of control. I need to control the situation, and I'm super upset. And when I was getting really upset with the kids, they started growing up to a point to where I'm like, okay, you're about to turn 18. I can't control you anymore. And so I'm getting really upset, like really angry.
Mm.
Well, there's something wrong with that. And technically, I never controlled my kids.
Right.
And that, that was a huge key to understand. And, for anybody here, you don't control your kids. So when they're out of control in the grocery store and somebody's like, your kids are out of control, hey, great. I'm here to raise them. I'm here to train them. But I'm not here to control them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, you really touched on a number of the things that I thought about. I mean, number one, I think, is just starting to analyze, press into and recognize what is going on. What is triggering you? What are the patterns? One of the cool tools that he puts in here, he lists 3 types of angry guys, and he gives them characters. But he talks about somebody who's just angry all the time. He calls it a frequency issue. He's got the guy that just, he doesn't get angry very often, but boy, is it intense when he does get angry. And then he's got the guy who you never see him respond in anger, but boy, does he stay angry below the surface and get even. And it's interesting to listen to it because it's not like, oh, I'm definitely one guy or the other. It's like, oh, I'm somewhere between these 2 guys over here. But the best tools, other than turning to God, I mean, that's obviously the one thing that we really can do is turn to God, and He really legitimately, He has power over that. He's not surprised by our anger. In fact, this may shock and surprise some people, but anger is a part of how God designed us. There's actually a right use of anger. It's just that it's an easy one to go so wrong. We feel out of control, and we just lose it, and we seek to control something. Mm-hmm. And so in addition to, number one, above everything else, turning to God, but 2, not being ignorant, right? Recognizing what condition am I in when this is happening? What is triggering me? That can be useful. But another thing to do is to actually kind of pre-plan. Mm-hmm. When that starts to happen, what would actually be a productive direction to go? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's all sorts of passions and feelings and thoughts that we can deal with that can be directed positively. Mm-hmm. But none of it's again, none of it's like hey, do these 3 things and you're good, other than turning to God.
Yeah, I will mention, part of that pre-planning is, what do you do when you fail, especially, in front of or at your family?
Yeah.
And, one of the main things is taking the time to apologize. So some of the things that will scar a kid the deepest may not even seem like a thing to you. Like it's not a major issue. I wasn't mad at them. I was mad at the dog. One of my memories of my father was he and my mom were arguing, and he was not a very big man. He was 6'4", but he was only 165 pounds. But he was just this incredible. He had this old man strength that was just insane. I remember he got so mad, and he never hit her. He never did any of that kind of stuff. But he got so mad, he picked up the refrigerator and threw it against the wall. And I remember thinking, that guy is Superman. He's just scary. And I'm watching this argument, and it's highly impactful to me as a young kid.
Yeah.
But he never apologized for anything. He never dealt with the issue, and so I think one of those pre-planning things is taking the time to make that a non-issue for your kids, and even just that simple apology of going, that was wrong. I apologize. Will you please forgive me? And then going a step further, and in your quiet time, you having a conversation with God and realize that you are forgiven and you need to forgive yourself as well.
Yeah, and that's really the only way to be able to move forward, because we can certainly hang on to that, especially when we see the fallout and the damage from an explosive version of anger. You know, I don't know that I've even hardly ever screamed or yelled at my kids or my wife, but man, have I destroyed some stuff. Even stuff that didn't matter. If I directed it to destroy something, that is a scary thing for young people to see, for a woman to see, because that idea can be put in their mind that, boy, who knows when that's not going to be controlled at all. But again, God's not surprised, and he has already forgiven you.
And this one's going to be even tougher to swallow. If one of your kids comes to you, which has happened to me, and says, hey, I'm scared about this, or I'm concerned about this, or I don't like how you did this, it is difficult to swallow your pride and say, okay, let's talk about that, and I apologize for what I did. My first reaction when that happened to me was actually something along the lines of, child, you have no idea what anger is. Let me tell you about some of the stuff that I went through when I was a kid, and any of those kind of things. And every single one of us can justify everything that we did or didn't do. But be prepared to take the humble route and mend the relationship. It is way, way more important than being right.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that I would say is humility. But it does get better. I mean, there's hope. There's, God has a purpose for your life, a purpose even for anger in your life, and he wants you to be free so that the anger is under your control and you are not controlled by that anger. Any other thoughts before we jump to some questions?
1,000 of them, so let's just jump
Let's
to questions.
just jump to questions. So maybe these will help you kind of think through the whole situation. I know I've been finding these questions to be pretty useful. So question number 1 for chapter 18 in Man in the Mirror, which is the book we've been following. Number 1, it's okay for men to get angry. Agree or disagree, and explain your answer. Number 2, read Ephesians 4, 26 through 27. When does anger become sin? Number 3, what is a pet peeve of yours that really ticks you off? Do you think your anger is a proper response? Number 4, when does anger have benefits that exceed the costs? Hint, do a traditional business cost-benefit analysis. Number 5, read Proverbs 22, verses 24 through 25. What is the risk of associating with angry people? Number 6, review how to respond to the temptation to become angry, as per Proverbs 29:11, Proverbs 19:11, Proverbs 15:1. Number 7, is God an angry God? Read Psalm 30, verse 5, 78, verse 38 through 39, chapter 103, verse 8, the book of Jonah, chapter 4, verse 2, 2 Peter 3, verse 9. Based on what these verses tell us about God, what should our attitude be? And number 8, according to Galatians 5, 16 through 17, how would you describe the two forces at work within you? How can a man walk by the Spirit? All right, guys. There's so much more I'm sure we could say. Even just read through the questions.
Read the book.
Read the book. Super helpful. Not too long. And we'll see you guys next time.